Peter Richardson begins his documentary, How to Die in Oregon, by following the last few hours of a man's life. This man is Roger Sagner, sorry. He was the 343rd patient to undergo physician-assisted suicide by use of Oregon's death with dignity law. The scene opens with a woman stirring a glass, which we only find out later contains the medicine that Roger will use to take his own life. Roger's last words, as we get to hear, are, I thank you all, and tell the people who prepared the medicine that it was woody, but not not undrinkable. He ended his life with a little of humor, and we get to end the opening by seeing him release a sigh of relief. The Death with Dignity Act is something that is slowly making its way through the states. However, it should definitely be federally legalized. It is an important asset because it improves the quality of life of our terminally ill patients. It is a safe alternative to other euthanasia-based hospice options. And it is an all-around form of palliative care that we otherwise would not consider. First off, I'd like to introduce you to Melissa Barbour. Melissa Barbour is a former president of the Death with Dignity Association, and she, in an interview on the Death with Dignity website, reported that in Oregon, Washington, and Vermont, where the Death with Dignity Act is legalized and anyone can undergo physician-assisted suicide, not anyone, I'll get to that later. Doctors are required to explain all feasible options for end-of-life care, including your traditional hospice, as well as the Death with Dignity physician-assisted suicide. In the entirety of the U.S. at the time of this interview, it was explained that 45% of the deaths in the U.S. were occurred within the hospice care. Meanwhile, within these states that had the Death with Dignity Act, 97% were enrolled in hospice when they were enrolled in hospice, as well as going through with the Death with Dignity Act. So almost everyone who participated in physician-assisted suicide had been enrolled in an alternative form of hospice, or more traditional to our alternative. Secondly, the Death with Dignity Act is a very safe alternative to traditional topics of euthanasia. It is impossible to misuse because of its very strict laws. So who can use it? The New England Journal of Medicine explains that it is only available to competent adults who are given a 6-month prognosis, and they have to give 2 oral requests and 1 written request over the course of 16 days. So if I was a patient, I would have to ask my doctor twice and give a written formal request for the medicine once in those 15 days. It also has to be recommended by 2 physicians. So as I mentioned earlier, the physicians have to give a whole list of your hospice options. And if 2 physicians both say, yes, there is nothing more we can truly do for you aside from offer you hospice, you have 6 months to live, this is an option for you, then that will allow you to get the form to fill out the medication. Next, I'd like to, for our third point, I'd like to begin by introducing 2 options to you, which I want you to reflect on internally. Your first option is you have just been given the diagnosis of a terminal brain cancer. There is nothing that they can do to save your life, only prolong it. Your first option is to stay at home in your lovely home in California, where all of your friends and family are. You will undergo a partial craniotomy, as well as a partial resectioning of your temporal lobe. You have 6 months to live. You'll have to undergo full brain radiation. You will lose all of your hair and will experience first-degree burns to your scalp. It's not going to save your life, but you would prolong it for the next 6 months. You'd lose a lot of your personality, and it wouldn't be as well of a quality of life as you would be experiencing if you were to die tomorrow. Your second option, you move to Oregon, you are able to undergo the Death with Dignity, you're able to participate in the Death with Dignity Act and receive the medication for physician-assisted suicide. You are given a generous amount of general hospice. You're able to keep your personality, and you are able to die where and how you choose within the state of Oregon in a more comfortable manner. This is Britney. She was 29 when she was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. She had just been married, and she was a bubbly, bright human being, as she had mentioned in an article with CNN as she was explaining her situation. She ended up going through with her former B option rather than her A option. The picture, if you can see, is of the medication that is prescribed when you wish to take your own life in a physician-assisted manner. So she uprooted her life in California to move to Oregon to have access to this form of hospice palliative care. She was not quiet about her decision. She, as was her personality, made a very big statement about how she was moving and she was choosing to do this. She was very young, but her prognosis was awful. She would have lost her signature brown hair. She would have been a vegetable and not had a very great quality of life. So she decided that this was her best option. She was reported in the CNN article by explaining that once the medicine was in her hand, the liquid medicine, as I showed you, she felt better about her situation. Even though she knew that she was not going to live very long, she was probably going to have to use this within the next couple of weeks. She said, until that moment when I feel like I need to take this, I have comfort and I have peace. Like nothing can hurt me. I have the power within my hands. And that was in her article with CNN. So now that I've broken down a little bit of what the Death with Dignity Act is, I strongly encourage you to check out the documentary, How to Die in Oregon, as it explains in depth both sides of the argument here, whether or not you believe it should be federally legalized or it should be a state-by-state basis. However, I strongly encourage you to take into consideration the Death with Dignity Act and its federal legalization, as it improves all around hospice care. It is a safe alternative to other forms of palliative care, and it is in its sense a palliative option that is important to people. It is important to point out that some people believe that this is a immoral option to give people because it devalues their life. But if you remember back to Britney and her situation, as well as Roger, as I mentioned in the beginning, would their life have been any more valuable if they had been put into a care where all that would happen was their life was prolonged for those 6 months, where they lost their personality and they didn't have many options in what they got to do with their life? So with that, I'd like to leave you with the tagline, and hopefully it'll catch you into checking out more information about this documentary and the meanings behind it. So, if you had the right to choose, would you choose where to die?